Hello, I am JX Eder, and I am here again
Okay.
with Chris.
Oh, hey, I thought I was doing my intro again. We need to work out this intro, dude.
I,
Yeah, I'm
we
still.
always say that.
Yeah, you think we would have got it like ironed out by now? We haven't. I'm Chris from Cinema Savvy, and I'm here joining you today to review another fan edit. And this one's kind of a weird one. Like this for all intents and purposes shouldn't be a thing, but it somehow is, and it's on YouTube, and you can go ahead and watch it. It's Pulp Empire.
I should put that in the description.
You probably should, so that people know what the fuck we're talking about.
Well, I have the IFTV page.
Okay, that's cool. But I mean, you can go more in depth into it, like about like the name of this fan editor and like what you probably know what it is from the name, Pulp Empire. Like it's not rocket science, but if you want to explain a little bit more about it.
So, as the name implies, this is a Tarantino-inspired Star Wars mashup and remix, as it likes to call itself. It was made by the editor NJVC to take the Empire Strikes Back and remix it using songs from and inspired by films of Quentin Tarantino. 100% of the score has been replaced, as well as overdubbing Yoda with what's his name? Pai Mei?
The character of Pai Mei from Kill Bill Volume 2, yeah.
Yeah. Which, well done.
That is probably one of the most inspired decisions in the whole movie, actually.
I mean, it's very. I mean, there's another character that could have been dubbed over like that.
What, Chewbacca?
No, Darth Vader.
Oh, I thought you meant specifically with Pai Mei's voice. I'm like, what?
Oh no! Like I was hoping you like I'm trying to get Pulp Empire into the description, so I was hoping you'd take the lead with that one.
You're trying to segue into our biggest criticisms of this entire fan edit, which is that there's no Samuel Jackson voice voicing Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's our biggest criticism. There's no Samuel Jackson as Darth Vader. If you're making this a thing, if you're taking Pulp Fiction or inherently like Tarantino and like slapping that coat of paint over a Star Wars movie, you best be goddamn sure that you have Samuel Jackson in there somewhere. And this edit doesn't do it. And you know what? I don't even know if they could do it. I don't even know if they could take the lines and dialogue of Samuel Jackson specifically and make it work in this movie. But I would have appreciated some kind of a fucking effort from it, at least.
Or at least have a flashback of Mace Windu somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe like in what's it called? Fuck. John Schmidt's edit. The one Dark Knight Rises, Star Wars, where Mace Windu is partially played by Winslow.
Sure. I don't know.
From Pulp Fiction. Sam Jackson from Pulp Fiction.
Oh, I should know this name. It's not Winslow, I don't think. And I can't remember
Travolta was Vincent.
I'm going to have a look now. Jules, isn't it? It's Jules.
Jules. Yes, Jules.
Winslow.
For some reason, I'm pretty sure his name is Winslow in Schmidt's edit.
And I mean, if you are making a Star Wars movie in the same vein as a Tarantino movie, as a Tarantino fan, which this editor clearly is, like he goes for the whole aesthetic and the music and everything like that. And oh boy, we'll talk about the music. But like Samuel Jackson pretty much cameos in every single one of Tarantino's movies here or there somewhere. Not every single movie, but the majority has Samuel Jackson in there in some vein or another, whether it's just a voiceover like in Inglourious Bastards, whether it's the smallest of cameos in Kill Bill 2, or whether it's a fully fleshed role like in Hateful Eight or Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. That pretty much sums up that grievance.
But we're going to be reviewing this as normal, the same criteria we usually do, based on originality, invisibility of the edits themselves, the complexity of the edit, the necessity of the edit, and the movie itself. Is it a good movie? Is it worth watching on its own merits?
And I think one thing we should do with movie is try to provide a score of the original movie, just so you have something to compare it to. Is it an improvement?
Oh, okay, so we're going to be giving two then, I guess, with Pulp Fiction and Empire Strikes Back at the end of this thing.
I was just going to go Empire.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't compare.
There's more Empire in this than Pulp Fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would have put Man of Steel at the end of the Man of Steel remaster. I wouldn't have put Superman 2.
Yeah. So kicking off on originality first, then. I gotta say, it's pretty fucking original in terms of coming up with an idea.
Yeah,
Should this idea be a thing? Probably not. Does
but
it
that we'll get into that later.
does it stick the landing with it? I'm not really sure. So like it's original in terms of concept. In terms of the edit itself, not really. You are pretty much just taking Empire Strikes Back as it is already. You're making it in a non-linear order. You're removing the soundtrack and slapping some 70s pop songs over it. And
So removing the soundtrack is a thing, though.
that is true, and actually, I will say, and this is going to get into Invisibility, that was done masterfully. I didn't really hear any moments where the original soundtrack kicked in. It was done absolutely phenomenally. Whether they literally just extracted the music and had the original sound effects, or if he put his own sound effects in, I think some like wind sound effects you hear and rain sound effects were probably added in Foley. But it's pretty original in terms of concept. So I don't know how we're reviewing this. Are we reviewing this on concept or in terms of the actual footage that he's working with and what he's done with it?
As for originality, you say?
Yeah.
I think it. I think both are. I mean, both are applicable. I would say that in this case, I think depending on how original the concept is, that might just completely overshadow how the files are used. But I don't know what I just said.
Okay, I'm gonna give this a solid 7 out of 10 for originality.
Really?
That might be a little high, but I'm trying to think like the actual concept and idea of itself as someone going, I'm going to take a Star Wars film, which is completely as divorced as possible as you can imagine from a from a Tarantino movie, and somehow mashing it together, getting it to work in the same style, to varying degrees of success. That's pretty original. And I mean, you can tell that this guy's a hardcore Tarantino fan. He uses a lot of the same, not all of the same, and we'll talk about that with some of the montages, but he uses a lot of the same editing techniques, or at least tries to edit things in the same style as you get random flashbacks in there, you get animated sequences, and obviously the soundtrack is a big thing. So, I mean, it's pretty original in that regard. In terms of actually what he's doing with the footage, you are essentially just watching Empire Strikes Back, just mashed in a different order. So I've got to docket some points from that. 7 might be a little bit high. Maybe it would be more appropriate as like a 6.5 or a 7, but I'm just going to say 7 for the sake of argument.
Actually, I gotta say, I'm giving it a much higher score than you feel it deserves.
Oh, okay.
Because this is the only edit of its kind. You know what I mean?
That is true. Yeah.
It's now I have thought of what I think a 9 and a 10 would be, which is why I feel comfortable giving this an 8. Because I feel like a 9 would take the movie and try to recreate another story with it, where I think a 10 would take the story and do it on its own, or take a story and try to make its own story.
Yeah.
But then 8 seems a very fair score, and I think I gave it an extra point for not using the Samuel L. Jackson, because I think that's kind of the closest thing we get to this being done before.
I mean, if anyone's even kind of somewhat knowledgeable about either movie, that is probably the first thing. That was the first thing that I mentioned when you said we're going to be reviewing this thing, and you explained to me the concept of what the edit is. I was like, "Wow, I can't wait to hear Samuel Jackson with lines as Vader." And you was like, "Don't get your hopes up, like that ain't going to happen." So, I mean, yeah, that is a big thing, because even like the editor, like that idea had to have gone through his head at some point, being a bigger Tarantino fan as he is, and clearly a Star Wars fan too. And to not do that, fair enough. But we'll talk about it later. Would we have liked to have seen that? Of course we fucking would. As such, we'll have to settle for Darth L. Jackson on YouTube as the closest thing we're ever going to get to seeing that.
Good times.
Oh, very good times. Should we move on to Invisibility?
Yeah, sure. Invisibility is not much to complain about.
No, I'm actually going to give this a very, very high score, because if it is Foley sound effects, which I imagine it is, they blend seamlessly with the actual sound effects from the movie. You still absolutely, there's no sound effects that are lost inherently. You still get like alien noises. You still get the sound of the ships, the lightsabers, explosions, everything like that. They're all intact. And you can't hear the background music. So, and I thought this would be a particularly hard audio track to extract the sound effects from, because I thought the John Williams soundtrack would be so inherently ingrained into everything, into the mix. But this guy did it, and he nails it. There are a lot of moments where he just straight up silences the footage and just has a track playing over it as the scene's playing in slow motion. So therefore, he could probably get around some areas that might be more problematic than others, but inherently, like, you don't lose anything. Like, all the dialogue's there, you can still follow the story even though it's in a non-linear order. Yeah, so Invisibility, I'm going to give, like, I mean, in my opinion, it was perfect. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I can't fault it. There was literally nothing that slipped through the audio for me. And
just the audio, but anything in the visual that you would...
even the visuals, like, the visuals were solid. Like, there was probably one shot I can think of, and this is being very, very nitpicky. It was an establishing shot at Cloud City, which I don't know with the original footage if that was part of like one of the fade wipes in George Lucas's movie. So it's literally on screen for a fraction of a second and probably should have been on screen a bit longer. But no, like, all the footage was there. I could follow it. There wasn't any choppy cuts there. Even the stuff where he's like splitting an action scene into like 4 individual boxes, or like going underneath each other like a comic strip or like a film strip or something like that, it all works for the style. So there was nothing that jumped out at me. So I've got to give it a perfect 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I wrote a note when the kind of comic booky split screen thing was happening. I'm gonna jump ahead a bit to movie just so I can read this note. Holy shit, the Battle of Hoth, holy shit, holy shit.
And it makes sense. I mean, the length of this edit is like an hour and a half, so he's shaving roughly half hour or so out of the movie. And most of that comes from the action scenes. You get that from the asteroid chase, you get that from the Battle of Hoth. The action's still there in the movie. It's just stripped back considerably. It's still a spectacle, it still works, and it still serves as an action beat, but it's done in a much more, well, it's done in the style of Tarantino if he were to do an action movie, which he has done, actually. Death Proof, and the stunts in that are absolutely insane. So maybe it's not quite the same, but it works for this movie. Because otherwise, if you're just watching like pew 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 AT-ATs, you're watching Star Wars. It will cease to become like a Tarantino version of that.
Unless you get like a lot of blood in there and you find out what the Rhodian were, what the Rhodians called their slaves. So
is that an actual thing? Is that like?
I really hope it's not.
Oh, okay,
I really do. Wasn't Tarantino supposed to do a Star Trek movie?
I was going to bring that up at some point. I was going to bring that up in movie. I guess this is as close as we're going to, if that's still going to be a thing, this is as close we're going to get to see what his version of Star Trek's going to eventually look like, which kind of makes me very worried.
Klingon N-word is.
Complexity then, like, how complex is the editing?
Well, I'm still on Invisibility, man.
Oh shit, yeah, sorry, you need to give the score.
Damn,
sorry, I'm jumping the gun, my bad.
I agreed with you on one thing. That wasn't Invisibility. Now, Invisibility. You say it's flawless. Now, I don't have much to complain about, but he did mess up some frames in his fading. There are times when I can see he jumps to the next shot because his fade is like 1 or 2 frames too long.
For the record, I was watching this on my phone. So I was watching this on a very small screen, so I didn't clock that as much as I would have if I was watching it on the big screen, maybe. Because usually I'm good at pointing stuff out like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like there was one when it fades from Luke's face, and then I know there was one on Bespin, and there was one between. There was at least one between them. There was also a transition when leaving the asteroid field that I think could have been better. It's just they fly out of the monster's mouth, and then it does like a clock wipe, and then suddenly, oh, thank goodness, we're leaving the asteroid field.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit jarring.
That's probably because that would have cut. Well, I can't remember the actual scene that follows it in Empire. I'm assuming it cuts to another scene, which he's then moved to another chapter mark, maybe. So that's
Yeah,
the only
definitely.
you can use.
Well, yeah, there's nothing between them. I feel like some stuff in the asteroid field might have been salvageable, or just fucking cut from it. Just be like they leave and there's a Star Destroyer behind them now.
Mm-hmm.
As for now, there was one other thing in Bespin. I don't think your phone watching it on a phone can justify you missing this. The dialogue in the Cloud City halls sounded so filtered.
I picked up a little bit of the filter there. It was only a couple of sentences though, and if that's the best that he could get it with the music behind it, then I'm not going to criticize that, because literally 99% of the rest of the movie was fine. I can forgive him for maybe having slightly filtered audio in one scene.
All right, well, this one gets an 8.
Okay. So we settling on a 9 with that one then? We gonna meet in the middle, or
what?
oh, you
Why do
added
you
up,
always
don't you?
forget this?
Literally, like a show on our own on my channel, we do it like in between the scores,
I
and on
see.
this one we added up.
That's all
So
the brackets.
that's my bad. Yeah, no, film club that we do that I do with Tate.
I've got to be honest. I have no idea what Battle of the Brackets is. I really like the title.
You should watch it. It's good fun. It's coming back soon, by the way. That's an exclusive. Complexity. So, how complex is the edit? How different is it from its source material? And is it also compared to other edits that have done something similar?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Oh, that's more
In
originality,
complexity,
isn't
it's
it?
just yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, it's complex to extract audio. I've been trying to do it
Yeah.
on one of my edits, and it's fucking infuriating. Like, for one sentence, I was on it for like 2 hours straight, and it still isn't perfect. So,
Which
God knows.
sentence is it?
It's from my Hobbit edit. It's Galadriel's line, "You will follow them," and Gandalf's reply of "Yes."
I mean, have you just put? Could you put other music underneath, and will it hide the
No,
filtered
no,
parts?
I've got music continuing from literally the previous shot. So 5 words took me 2 hours, and I'm still not completely happy with it because it does sound incredibly filtered. Anyway, that's my own thing. Complexity of this one. Not very complex, if in all honesty. Like, there are some creative editing scenes like the Battle of Hoth, as we've mentioned, the dialogue extraction, everything like that, but inherently everything else is very doable. There are some very easily achievable opening credit scenes which, you know, would have still taken time but are very doable to do. You're slapping music on it. The complexity would be coming
Jeez, it's
from,
not hard.
yeah, music. Like, just if you're a Tarantino fan, you can pretty much pinpoint all of the music in his films and just go, oh, that one would work here. A bit of experimentation maybe and you'll get it. I'm not saying that this wouldn't have taken time to do. This would have still taken hours, weeks, maybe even months to do. But everything in it is fairly doable. It's not like something where they're completely adding like special effects into it or any kind of like matte work or anything like that. It is inherently the movie. It's chopped up. It's shuffled around a little bit. There's some scenes that you've made into black and white, which you can literally do at a click of a button now. The most complex thing about this edit would be to have the, you know, extract the audio, get rid of the original music. Complexity, I'm going to give a 6.5.
Really, 6.5.
7. I'll stretch it to a 7.
Really? All
Yeah.
right. You caved really easily there.
I did. I don't like 0.5 scores. It's just like
Oh, you're gonna hate mine.
There is, oh, okay, you're gonna have like 0.23 or something.
No, it's
Okay.
0.5.
Okay.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, just making sure. So far in the show, we've reviewed edits so fucking similar to this as far as complexity is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because the more edits like those are more interesting, at least from an editing standpoint.
Comparatively, I thought the Game of Thrones one we did was way more complex than this one.
I can see why you'd say that, but when it comes to like complexity of from a technical standpoint,
mm-hmm.
this is pretty much identical to Man of Steel and the Game of Thrones one.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up, phone. Here, hang on. I'm sure that's fine. I don't have a case.
No, I don't have a case either. Good luck, man.
So, like both edits before it, it's getting a 7.5 out of me, and I hope the next one is different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in command of what we review next, so technically this is on you for having similar scores to all this stuff.
I think I got one.
Okay. So necessity then. Was this edit necessary? Did it need to be made? Were people clamoring for it? And did this have any sort of effect in history? Well, in terms of history, I mean, I don't know how popular this edit is. It certainly isn't as popular as, for example, some Star Wars edits out there or anything like that, any big ones. Um,
Despecialized,
yeah,
revisited,
something like that. This has, I think this has like
phantom.
11K views, doesn't it? I think on the YouTube channel, if I remember
I've
rightly.
got it open. No, I don't. I probably got it copied and pasted. I do. It
11K, is it?
has 11,696.
So it's a nifty view count, but it's not massive. So I don't think it's gone down in history or anything like that. Where it has gone down in history is that no one else has done a Tarantino Star Wars movie, to my recollection. Not outside of short little vignettes in taking a whole Star Wars film and making it like a Tarantino movie. So therefore, it is pretty unique in that regard. Was this necessary? I'm going to say no. Like usually with fan edits, and my preferred fan edits are yes, sometimes it's fun to do an experiment edit like this one. My favorite fan edits are always the movies or TV shows that came this close to achieving greatness, but just fell at the final hurdle, and it just like a little bit of trimming here, a little bit of shuffling around, maybe some new music added, it could get it to a higher score, could have more of an impact on people. Those are always my favorite fan edits. So in terms of this one, was it needed? No, we didn't need to see this. And in all honesty, and this has been proven by many other YouTubers, you could take certain scenes from this edit and upload those to YouTube and just have that be a thing. There are moments in the movie, like at the end, where they play Ennio Morricone's Ecstasy of Gold from The Good, the Bad, the Ugly over Luke and Vader's fight. That's cool to watch. And I think that certain scenes work more in the movie than the whole sum of its parts. In terms of necessity, I'm going pretty low on this one. I'm going to give this like a 4.
I'm going lower.
Okay.
1.
Yeah.
This did not need to be made, and similar to originality, this one is also affected by the lack of Sam Jackson. However, as opposed to originality, as I find necessity often is, this one loses a point, as those videos are those videos of, what is it, Darth L. Jackson?
Yeah.
I would have preferred Samuel L. Vader, just saying.
Mm-hmm.
But to each his own. Those are the closest. I said it early. These are the closest things to anybody asking for that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if it didn't do that, then.
And I think the impact of those shorter scenes, whether it be comedic or whatever you get out of it, mostly comedic, the novelty of that wears off greatly. Like if you were to do a whole movie, and I think the Tarantino edge did really sort of. After it got past like the first 10 minutes or so, I was just like, oh, we're in this for the long haul for an hour and a half. Okay. So that's a good segue enough to bring it onto movie itself. Does the edit work? Is it a good movie essentially on its own? You can follow it pretty well. Like, obviously, if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're at all predisposed to any of the previous Star Wars movies, whether it be the prequels or, A New Hope before this one, you're going to get more out of it. But I think even if you haven't seen Star Wars before, you could watch this one and still follow the plot considerably. Would I recommend a newcomer watching this before Empire Strikes Back? Hell no. No, of course not. What are you fucking insane? Like, no.
I've got a newcomer I could show this to.
No, don't do it. No. This literally just serves as an experiment, and it's fine. I did really run out of steam with this thing, though. I'm not going to lie. I was considering skipping some parts, but I thought, no, damn it, I'm going to watch it beginning to end. I'm not going to skip anything. I skipped the credits. Like the credits were very long to this thing. Yeah, but like there are moments towards the end of the there's certain music cues which are really interesting. Hand being frozen in carbonite played to the music, and I can't remember the actual name. I know it's an Ennio Morricone track where Beatrix punches out of the coffin from Kill Bill 2. That was a pretty good music choice for that scene. Vader's intro was incredible. Okay, so I'll talk about some of the character intros in this thing. Vader and Boba Fett's intro in this film is perfect. Like, absolutely pitch perfect.
They all had pretty good intros.
Yeah. Perfectly well edited. Nice little video montage, highlight reel almost. Great choice of music and everything like that. That stuff worked. But as I said before, like the individual scenes are worth more than the entire sum of its parts when it's all put together. There are a lot of, I know we wanted to talk about this, there are a lot of montages in this movie, a lot of just taking a scene, putting it in slow-mo and whacking a song over the top of it. And that happens a lot in this edit.
A lot.
If you were to combine the runtime of all those montages, it's a hell of a lot. And inherently, that's not what a Tarantino movie is. So if you're ranking it on
No.
that is almost a failure. On there are certain scenes that do emulate a Tarantino scene very well, but
But it
Tarantino doesn't have continuous like movie montages in his films. But then again, if you did just play the scene as normal, you're essentially just watching Star Wars.
true.
And that's also a negative in that the concept itself is almost impossible to achieve and get
I just
down.
want to throw out there. I should throw out there that he did say he wasn't NJVC, male or female. I'm assuming your gender. I'm sorry, or one of the other 70. Uh, did say that they were not trying to make another Tarantino movie. They were trying to make an homage to Tarantino.
But even
And
in that regard, like the
yeah,
montages just get like one or two here and there, but there were a lot more than that in the movie. So
I
as
would
a
have.
go on, sorry.
I think they would have been good for the montages specifically. Would have been good as just the character introductions
Yeah.
and maybe Luke
Um,
training.
yeah, that would have been cool. I did like the inclusion of the Cartoon Network Clone Wars TV series. That was a nice throwback to the likes of Kill Bill 1 with the anime sequence from that
Mm-hmm.
movie. So there are good moments, but I
Something
just
about that scene. I thought that was supposed to be Luke at first. I knew what it was, but I
yeah,
thought that it was like, oh shit! So we're having Luke do this. That's
yeah.
cool. And then it's like, oh no, it's Anakin, and I don't know which one I like more.
It's a little bit weird that later on in the movie we also get a flashback to the actual cave sequence from the movie, which
Yes,
doesn't feature in
yeah,
it
we do.
because Luke, in terms of this film, Luke would have no knowledge of that because he didn't see that. Maybe you could have combined
Exactly.
the two and had two moments, two visions in there. That's the only way around it. I'm gonna go a little bit. Where am I gonna go with this thing? See, I think a six is. I'm gonna go a six. Like it
Well,
was
okay.
fine.
So how do you rank Empire 10?
Oh, 10 out of 10. Come on.
Yeah, same,
It's
same,
fucking
10.
perfect. It's a perfect movie.
Yeah.
Maybe like the ending, obviously it ends on a cliffhanger and doesn't really resolve, but that was because it's the middle part of the fucking trilogy, and of course it's got to link into the next one. So yeah, of course it's 10 out of 10. I'm gonna give this actually six might be a bit high. I'm gonna go middle of the road. I'm gonna go five. Like it was fine. The novelty was there. It was okay, but it did start to drag for me. It really, really did. And I think that had he have edited individual scenes, they would have played very well. He could have done like the Vader intro, had that as one scene, Boba Fett intro as another, and maybe the Luke and Vader fight as a separate scene. But the whole thing as a whole didn't work for me as much. But there was some very well done scenes in there. But the film
Mhm.
didn't really have much impact on me.
So this one gets a 7.5 out of me. From me. It's not getting a 7.5 out of me. I swear. Now this is actually the highest score I've given to a movie so far. But remember, it's The Empire Strikes Back, so
Mm-hmm.
actually 7.5 is a step down.
Mm-hmm.
It gets a 10 out of 10 for me specifically. I can see why someone might give it a 9.
Yeah.
Uh, I felt the musical montages got old. I felt that there was more to there's more to Tarantino than the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I recognize that it was limited from what it had, but I would have liked at least one scene that began with dialogue that had absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the scene. Now,
Mm-hmm.
how do you do this? The droids, specifically on Hoth, when R2 with 3PO and R2 talking about how R2 left the heat on in Leia's quarters. Maybe even includes like some close-ups of them talking to draw more attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, other little things, notes I took. I didn't like the smooth jazz during
Mm-hmm.
Leia and Han's argument in the tunnels. I didn't think that really fit with the tone. I thought the replacement for the Imperial March was really suitable. In fact, I'd even be willing to wager that it was probably what started the edit, considering
Mm-hmm.
that Sam Jackson wasn't in there. Holy shit, the Battle of Hoth, holy shit. The cave was interesting. I liked it. I like you said, the sudden callback to the cave that we didn't see.
Mhm.
When was that? Was that
That
after
was
I Am Your
during the
Father?
final fight. Also, one thing, yeah, it was. Also, I didn't like the O Fortuna being played over the final fight.
Yeah.
That didn't fit for me. That
Was O
wasn't
Fortuna
Tarantino.
in a Quentin Tarantino movie
I
that I
don't
didn't
believe so.
see?
I don't believe so.
What the fuck was that doing there?
Yeah.
I didn't like the song used when they were approaching Cloud City. Do you remember what it was?
Um. Yes, it was used in the teaser trailer for Toy Story 4. I
Okay.
can't remember what it's called. I'm aware of the song. I thought it was fine, but it was just like we need a song that has clouds in it. There we go.
When Boba Fett flies away with Han, there's like a little transition that normally I don't think I'd like, but for some reason I really liked its use there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Quite an ending, just kind of stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Tarantino does that, but I feel like even though it's not where the story is ending, you do usually get an ending.
Yeah, it's usually punctuated with like a pretty poignant or hard hitting final line before it cuts to the credits.
Yeah. Also, I think it could have stood to have some different titles. I think Pulp Empire's kind of lame,
Mm-hmm.
and also a little inappropriate. What was so Pulp Fiction about this?
Yeah, I guess that was the most memorable Tarantino name. You actually came up with another title
Oh wait,
suggestion for
I
this
got a
movie.
couple. I got three. Two of them are identical. One's Kill Vader and Kill Sheev,
Okay, I
and
don't think
then
they would have worked very well, but
no, but kind of funny. But no, the one then I thought of one that I really liked, which was Inglorious Rebels.
I like that one.
Yes, that's I think is a good title.
Mm-hmm.
And also one other thing, like a closing thought, nothing to do with the rest of it. I think this idea actually could have worked if it were done with Solo.
Explain. Oh, just like
I
the Tarantino movie style over the Solo film.
Yes, yeah, I think that really could work.
Um, the dialogue might be maybe quippy enough, perhaps. I don't know. I have no idea, but I just don't think that the Tarantino aspect, unless you're fundamentally rewriting the script, either using voiceover from Tarantino movies in order to fully change the story, which is impossible when it comes to Star Wars, I don't think it's going to have the same impact. You could take anything. You could take anything and fucking like slap a 70s rock song over it and go, and then whack it in a split screen and say, oh, yeah, I'm making a Tarantino movie. You could do that. You could literally do that with anything. But if you're truly wanting to make a Tarantino film, then you've got to go into it, boom, with a script. And then you're essentially reworking the entire movie.
Yeah, yes, that's that. Wait, what the fuck?
So
Hi.
what was your score then for movie?
Oh, I didn't give it a score, did I? No, I did. It gave it a 7.5.
7. That's all right.
And I sorry, while you were describing the last thing I'll admit I didn't hear what you said because I was doing math.
That's cool.
It gets a 64.5% on Rotten JX Savvy.
That's not bad. That's not a bad score. I'd go there. It's a little above average.
I mean, it's exactly average for what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Like we gotta get something different.
As well, I mean, you're the judge of that, so
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
I
so
guess we
here
can
I got an idea for that.
go on.
Uh, what are you doing next week?
Next week I might be away. Next weekend. But I'd be free the weekend after that.
You want to do Phantom Edit? Like the first edit?
Sure, it's like pretty much where all these Star Wars fan edits started from, right?
Yeah, which means I'm just gonna tell you now. Give originality a fucking 10.
And this is going to be very interesting because I have seen this fan edit before. It's
Have
been a
you
long time
commentary?
since I've seen it, but the last time I watched it was before Episode 7 and Episode 8, which I have not been very fond of. So it'll be interesting going back to this thing and seeing how I appreciate this one now.
Also, I think when we should watch it twice. once on its own and once with the editor's commentary.
See, I've never watched the editor's commentary. I've
That
only ever
was that
watched.
was the first way I watched it because it was on YouTube. I'll hook you up.
Cool. I mean, I guess that'll pretty much do it for our review. I really only have one final thing to say before we round off, and that's Spaghetti 2 Electric Boogaloo, which is
Yes.
yeah, we go. That someone out there will appreciate that. Everyone else watching will be like, "What the fuck is up with this guy?"
I gotta think of a name for that and just have that just be a segment on each show.
Yeah. So I will be
Chris's
taking
word of the week.
requests. If you're a US viewer or any nationality for that matter that isn't British, and you want to hear me
Or
say a
British.
particular or British, like maybe you've got some kind of kink or fetish, like hearing like another guy
Don't
say
shame.
something. Literally, I will take requests as to a phrase or a word or a sentence that you want me to say in a British accent, and I will do my very best to get that across to you guys during the stream.
The very best, like no one ever was.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes. That's coming out in 2 weeks' time. I'm really looking forward to it. Detective Pikachu.
I'm looking forward to the Danny DeVito fan edits we're gonna get from that. You know, I don't have many years left in me. I just gotta make sure they're weird.
Hey, it wouldn't be his first time playing an animated character, right?
I don't know. Was it?
He was Phil in Hercules. He was the animated cat
Oh
in Last
yeah.
Action Hero.
I did not see Last Action Hero, but I knew Phil.
You owe it to yourself to watch Last Action Hero. It's an
I
amazing
don't
movie.
do fiction. That was a Last Action Hero ref. I get references. I don't necessarily do movies
Watch the
sometimes.
movies themselves. Yeah, that's fair enough.
All right. Also, the stream is over, bye.